I'd like to call this December 10 meeting of the Planning Commission, City Lake Forest, to order. And I think we should note that Chairman Brower is not in attendance tonight, and I will be taking over as chair. And I will also be giving the pledge, multitasking. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I went out of order, but you got the roll call, right? All right. All right, at this time we'd like to see if there's any public comments other than an item that might be on our agenda. Anything? Okay. Is there anybody else out there that didn't turn in a sheet? Great. And so we'll move on to presentation items.
No, actually it would be the consent calendar. We have one item on the consent calendar this evening.
All right. So I'd like to call on the consent calendar. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve the consent calendar.
I second that.
Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for a vote. All right, so now, we're good? Yeah. Moving on to presentation items.
No, public hearing items. Our first item this evening is a tentative track map 17542 and a site development permit. And Jennifer Mansour has the presentation this evening.
Good evening, Acting Chairman and Commissioners. Up to date, the City has approved 10 different single-family residential neighborhoods in the New Baker Ranch residential community. One of the neighborhoods has been completed, and we have new model homes being constructed in 4 of the projects. This item is a new single-family residential neighborhood in the Baker Ranch community, which is going to be called The Crossings. The developer for this project is Toll Brothers. The project includes both a site development permit and a tentative tract map. The tentative tract map proposes to subdivide the 9-acre property into 74 lots for homes and 10 lettered lots for common areas that will be maintained by the association. This development has 74 residences, and most of the residences for this tract are arranged in 4-unit clusters. This project is very similar to the Parkview development, which some of you may remember, which was also developed by Toll Brothers in the first phase of construction at Baker Ranch. The Parkview development was very successful, and Toll Brothers chose to repeat this concept for the crossings. Similar to the Parkview development, all the residences have individual driveways that can accommodate parking for 2 vehicles. The driveways for the front 2 residences are accessed directly from the public street, and the 2 rear residences are accessed from a shared motor court. In addition to the garage and driveway parking, the development has 4 new public streets that can accommodate parking on one side of each street for a total of 22 on-street parking spaces. Overall, the project meets the city's parking requirement with a surplus of 7 parking stalls. The residences will have 3 floor plans that range in square footage from 2,000 to 2,400 square feet, with 4 bedrooms with a optional 5th bedroom. Each residence has a private yard with block walls and a wooden gate. There are 3 different architectural styles proposed for each floor plan and 5 different color schemes. Landscaping, including trees, shrubs, vines, and ground cover, is proposed for the front yards of each home and along each alley, also in the parkways. This landscaping will be maintained by the Homeowners Association. This project includes the request for an alternative development standard and a modification to the fence height requirements. The request for the alternative development standard is to reduce the 2-foot setback to a 1-foot setback for a first-story porch on Plan 4 units from the motor court. All living areas of the residence, however, will meet the required setbacks. Staff is supportive of this request because it will allow an additional architectural element to the first story of the units to provide articulation to the elevations facing the motor court, and it will not affect the vehicular circulation. The project also includes a request for a modification to the fence height requirements to allow an 8.5-foot tall wall along some of the rear property lines and 2 side yard property lines to accommodate a grade change and still provide adequate privacy for the residences. Staff has included the required findings for both the alternative development standard and the wall height modification in the resolution approving the site development standard. Overall, the project, with the additional findings, will be in compliance with the city zoning code, and furthermore, the architecture and landscaping of the project are in compliance with the design guidelines specifically for the Baker Ranch residential community. Staff is recommending the Planning Commission adopt 2 separate resolutions to approve the tentative tract map and the site development permit for this project. A representative from Toll Brothers is in the audience tonight, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Okay, so do we have any questions for staff? Then, do we have any public speakers on this item?
Jason Sertilman.
And might I remind you when you come to the podium to state your name and your city of residence?
Hello, everyone. My name is Jason Sertilman. I live in Irvine. I am a representative of Toll Brothers tonight, and I apologize that my colleague who is on this project is not with us tonight, as his wife is in labor or just had a child. Yeah. I'd be happy to answer any general questions, however. Between Jennifer and I, we should know everything for this project. Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions of the applicant at this time? And are there any other speakers? Okay. Well, you did a great job.
I told them we could handle it.
Okay, so we'll bring it back up here. And does anybody have anything they want to chime in?
I'll say something. No, this is indicative, this application is indicative of what we've become very accustomed to seeing from both Toll Brothers and Shea out of the Baker Ranch projects. It's just exceptional, and the design of this is very popular, not just here at Baker Ranch, but all throughout the building industry. As you see, these courtyard, motor court kind of propositions, land use is really expanded on that. The 2 variances that are being requested here really don't make a difference except for the architectural accentuation. So I'm pleased with this. I'm full support of this.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Just make a motion to approve the staff recommendation
Did you want to close the public hearing?
and close the public hearing.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. No further discussion? We'll call for a vote. Motion carries. Congratulations. You can go back and say you did a great job. Okay, so we will move on to item 3.
Item 3 is a zoning code amendment for revisions to the city's water efficient landscape regulations and guidelines. And Jennifer also has a report this evening on this item.
Hello again. This next item is a code amendment related to water efficient landscaping regulations. In 2009, the city adopted the current water efficient landscaping regulations based on a county model ordinance in response to a state assembly bill 1881. This new proposed ordinance is in response to Governor Brown's signed executive order, which directed the State Department of Water Resources to update the Model Water Efficiency Landscape Ordinance to reduce water used for irrigation. The state required that each city in California either adopt the model ordinance presented by the Department of Water Resources by December 1st, or to adopt a regional model ordinance by February 1st. A regional model ordinance for Orange County was developed by the Association of Cities Orange County, which simplifies and streamlines the state's regulations while maintaining the requirement of being at least as effective as the state's model ordinance. The city's proposed ordinance and related guidelines are based on this Orange County model ordinance. Generally, the changes include new definitions, changes to the applicability of the ordinance and guidelines, changes to the maximum applied water allowance, or the MAWA, changes to the irrigation design requirements, and the addition of a required state reporting of the implementation and enforcement of the ordinance. I just wanted to quickly clarify that currently the city does not require any review or permits for landscaping rehabilitation or new landscape projects at an existing single-family home. The proposed water efficiency landscape regulations only apply to projects that require a permit. Therefore, this ordinance would not apply to landscape projects at a single-family residence at an existing one. However, it will apply to probably any landscape plan you see here at Planning Commission will be required to meet this ordinance. Staff is recommending that the Planning Commission adopt a resolution recommending the City Council approve this ordinance and related guidelines. If you have any questions about this ordinance, I would be happy to try to answer them for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. You answered my question in your presentation. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, well then, can I ask for a motion and a closing of the hearing?
Make a motion to approve staff recommendation and close the public hearing.
I second that.
And I didn't ask for public speakers, but I trust you would have flagged us down. Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right, so we have a motion and a second. Let's vote. Okay, well, moving on to item 4. It's going to be a long one, right?
Undoubtedly.
Yeah.
Item 4 is a zoning code amendment related to campaign signs and window graphics. We're recommending that this item be taken off the agenda, and we'll re-advertise it when we bring it back.
I have a comment, or actually a question, if I could, Gail. I saw that this was for campaign signs and for window graphics. Has there been any discussion about the proliferation of real estate signs that seem to be scattered all over the city on any given weekend? You can have a listing up in Foothill Ranch and you'll find agents advertising all the way down by the freeway. So it's more or less, they'll have 3 to 4 signs at any given major intersection. It's just kind of promotion of them. And as you all know, I'm a real estate broker, but I'm retired for all practical purposes. I haven't advertised for years, and I'm not going to. But it's just really bothering me that on any given weekend, you can find real estate signs all over the city pointing arrows, maybe 30, 40 signs pointing to one property. And it's what's happening is it was started by an agent, and now other agents are following suit. So just something that might want to be discussed.
I'd like to refer that, your comment, to code enforcement, because we do have existing regulations, and I believe they talk about a reasonable number needed to identify.
Right.
So if we could take that as one of your comments, we can certainly have the proposed revisions or the work that we're doing on the sign ordinance did not include that. Right. But if we're looking at some violations of the current regulations, I think code enforcement would be the best bet. So I'll pass that along.
Yeah. What we're seeing take place is that now other agents are deciding, well, if one can do it, then 2, and if 2, then 4, and so it's going to get exponentially worse if it's not taken care of.
Thank you, Commissioner. So I'll take a motion to continue this item.
I'll move. Continue.
I'll second it.
All right. Please vote. Okay, item number 5.
Item 5 is a zoning code amendment in regards to the city's wireless communication facilities, and Ron Santos has a staff report this evening.
Good evening, Vice Chair Fuentes and members of the Planning Commission. This item is a continued item from the October 8th, 2015 Commission meeting, at which staff presented a draft ordinance amending the city's current wireless communications facility regulations. The draft ordinance included several significant revisions, including new facility classifications, new development standards, provisions for facilities in the public right-of-way where none existed previously, elimination of the requirement for environmental impact analysis for all major facilities in favor of analysis as required by the California Environmental Quality Act, and new provisions for co-location facilities based on new preemptive state and federal regulations. At the October hearing, the Commission discussed the draft ordinance, received public comments, and ultimately requested that staff reevaluate certain provisions of the ordinance and return with additional analysis and information. Accordingly, staff reviewed provisions related to the maximum height of antennas atop utility poles in the public right-of-way, the requirement for a license agreement for all facilities in the public right-of-way, and the minimum setback from residential property lines for freestanding facilities. And made revisions pertaining to each staff made revisions pertaining to each in the revised draft ordinance for consideration by the Commission this evening. Specifically, staff is recommending that the height limit for utility pole mounted antennas be increased to 6 feet from 4 in the ordinance presented at the prior meeting, that the license agreement be required only for facilities affixed to city-owned poles, and that the setback to residential properties maintain the 1-to-1 height to setback ratio, provided, however, that the minimum setback of 55 feet be required before the 1-to-1 setback applies. Additionally, staff substantially amended the provisions for equipment in the public right-of-way based on the type of street. For example, whether the street is residential or a non-residential arterial street. The rationale for each of the proposed revisions is discussed in the staff report, and at the Commission's pleasure, I'd be happy to elaborate on any or all of the suggested revisions. Staff also forwarded the current draft amended ordinance to all of the wireless service providers' contacts we established during the initial drafting of the ordinance and the workshops that followed, and followed up with a call to each of the 3 industry representatives that attended and spoke at the October 8th meeting. All 3 advised that they reviewed the revised draft ordinance and support its adoption. However, the AT&T representative requested that the time allotted for removal of an abandoned facility be increased from 90 days to 120 days, and that's reflected in the blue sheet that is the email from the AT&T representative. This change would be simple and fairly inconsequential, and staff would have no objection to making it if the Commission is in agreement. Lastly, I realized that I made your jobs much more difficult than they needed to be. Attachment 3 to this agenda item was intended to be a red line version of the ordinance that was presented to you on the 8th, and unfortunately the red lines didn't print, so you're just seeing the final version, which you now have 2 of. So what I passed out just before the start of the meeting is the red line version, where you can see the underline reflecting the text that was added and the strike through representing the text that was deleted. And I apologize for getting that to you literally at the last minute. But with that, I'll conclude my presentation and be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, well, we'll open up the public hearing, and I would just like to say, Ron, that you've made our lives so much easier in so many other ways. I'm willing to forgive you. Okay? All right, any questions for Ron or anybody else?
I had one question, just for as a matter of curiosity. How many cell sites have been abandoned in this city since this thing started?
I'm not aware of a single facility that's been abandoned, but the provisions are in place because of the potential for technology to change, and you know, who knows, a 60-foot tall pole that was built 10 years ago and 20 years might not be needed because we all have small antennas on our homes, for example.
Well, I was just curious if that had ever happened, because it seems like it's a pretty rare item. They seem to be putting more stuff on towers, not less. So thank you very much.
Any other questions? All right, well, are there any speakers?
Carver Chu.
May I just remind you to state your name and your city of residence?
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair, Interim Chair, and members of the Commission. My name is Carver Chu. I am a Government Relations Manager for Crown Castle. And I wanted to, and address 12, Suite 300, Spectrum Center Drive, Suite 1200, Irvine. I just wanted, actually I didn't have any prepared remarks. I just felt like it was appropriate to come up and spend a couple minutes just acknowledging the efforts that staff have made to get this ordinance amendment in front of you. We don't have any further changes that we'd like to propose. We're happy with what's been presented and certainly look forward to having that go forward to council. I really just wanted to mention that it's been probably 20 years since I was in the city back when I first started in wireless, and I was working with Ms. Ackerman on some of the older sites in the city, probably the ones we're a little less proud of. But that represented, the early generation of wireless. And so we've come a long way in 20 years in design, in terms of the design and what you're starting to see being deployed within the city. That said, I'd like to say that I think the ordinance, as it's written, really is a sensible one, and that strikes a balance between protecting the interests of your residents, your constituents, and really helping to deploy wireless infrastructure that really is ultimately important infrastructure and something truly beneficial for your residents and your businesses. So really nothing exciting to say other than thank you. We appreciate the support that this city has provided to the industry. We really think that this city is in many ways a progressive one from a wireless standpoint, and I've heard good things from residents about what they're seeing in terms of the wireless infrastructure, and I think that ultimately your residents will benefit from what we're deploying. And wireless devices, wireless technology is not going away. As was mentioned, there's only more of it required to meet the growing demand, and so the companies are being taxed to meet the demand, and so we're trying to do that, and we appreciate the support that the City of Lake Forest has provided in that regard. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Is there anybody else? Okay, well then, why don't we bring it back up here? Does anybody have any comments, questions, concerns?
I was just quite impressed with the job that the staff has done and the amount of detail that they have taken into account in this particular ordinance change. I think you did a really good job. That was very well written, and from our part, I'd be happy to make a motion to close the public hearing and bring it back up here as approve staff's recommendation for the ordinance.
Is there a second? And I'll allow more discussion after the second if anybody wanted to say something more.
I'll second the motion. Go ahead and add your comments.
I don't have comments. I just didn't want to not hear something from you, Jerry.
You heard it.
All right, then we're ready to vote. Okay, well that brings us to the longest meeting in our history of this 2015. Discussion items. Are there any discussion items? Director's comments?
Director's comments. Happy holidays to all of the commissioners. In the month of January, most likely the second meeting in January, representative, the chairman, Brower, will be at the city council meeting. As you recall, we had an item where we kind of brainstormed on commission accomplishments, and that will move forward. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Great.
No, sometime in January, and the Park and Rec Commission chair will also be at that meeting.
Perfect. All right. Our city attorney.
Only comment is happy holidays and have a great break.
Thank you. All right. We're going to start with Tom tonight.
I thought this was a really good evening. I was really happy to see the wireless thing go. That I think was probably one of the things we worked really hard on in the last year or so. And I was really glad to see that happen. I think that would be a real benefit to the city going forward, and so I was really glad to see that. And, the other things that we've been doing, I think, for the time we've been here, I think have been really helpful. I'm glad to be a part of it.
Thank you, Tom. All right, Commissioner Almeida.
I just want to say job well done. We say that every time, but we get a good job each time. And happy holidays, or Merry Christmas. Thank you.
Jerry,
So it's my turn.
if you'd like. You want me to go?
Ladies are always first.
All right, I'll go. So, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to everybody, and I think Jennifer deserves a round here tonight. She had a couple of very important reports, and of course, Ron always does a great job. There was another team that did a great job this past week, and they're called the UCLA Bruin Water Polo Team. And since we do not have an update from CJ on Lake Forest Little League, I thought you might want to have a sports update. And my son happens to be on the UCLA Water Polo Team. They just completed their undefeated season, beat USC 4 times this year, and are the national champions. So that's my little league update. Jerry.
That's awesome. Congratulations to your son.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't here last month, so I didn't get a chance to comment on the planning officials forum that attended in October, which was absolutely outstanding. I thought it was one of the best ones that I've ever attended. The information on there was really well received, and obviously cities are now having to deal with things such as Airbnb and Uber and all the fun little things that everyone in the public says, oh, that's really great. And cities are trying to pull their hair out a little bit. I thought that was interesting to get an inside take on that. I'm really glad to go. I'm sorry that all couldn't attend, but excellent information, and you should try to do that every chance you get to get out there. I know Robert was there, and Gail was there, and you were there too. Yeah. We just missed CJ and Tom.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anyway,
Tom has to work for a living. Yeah.
I guess that's one of the advantages of getting to this stage of life. I get to pick when I want to work now, and it's kind of fun. And I wish I'd gotten here earlier. I would have picked some other things. All that aside, a couple of things for the city, if you would, Gail. The landscaping, the Tribuco Street landscape project, looks like it was done about 50 years ago, and it was only a couple of years ago they put it in. I'm not sure if it's just a really bad maintenance situation that we've got going on there, but just an unfortunate situation. A lot of dead plants, dead material, stuff there that should be addressed. Also noticed on Tribuco, right at tree line, the asphalt at the turn-in into the residential tract there is degraded substantially, as is just prior to that coming in off of Lake Forest, going towards Peachwood. It looks like, well, I know what it was. It was a motorhome that was trying to get into the driveway into where the dance studio is, and did some severe scraping into the asphalt, and that's starting to get more and more deteriorated. So we might want to have Public Works take a look at both of those situations. And the last one that I picked up on, I came out of Home Depot up here at Foothill Ranch, and I noticed the fence that divides to keep the kids from running back and forth from the skate shop to Etney's. Looks like it could use a sandblasting and a repainting. The painting is just peeling off there pretty severe. Just comments like that. So now we got all the bad stuff out, I want to say Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. Excellent job by staff. It's been a great year. I can't believe how quickly it has gone, but, I was telling my grandson, he said to me, about a year ago, he says, Pa, I can't understand how come time goes so fast. Now, for a 16-year-old to say that, that's one thing. For a 66-year-old to say it, that's a different thing. And I said to him, Jacob, time goes exactly the same speed every day. It's what your perceptions are. And I've got him thinking about that. God bless you all.
Well, thank you. With that, let's adjourn the meeting.